2024 was another excellent year for horror films. Between some fantastic franchise continuations and indie box office hits, 2024 will go down in history as a monumental year for the genre. While there are many films that blew me away this year, today I want to talk about my top 10. Obviously, my list is going to be different from yours, so instead of leaving me a nasty comment about how bad it sucks, leave me yours instead. Remember, it's just a movie opinion, it's not that serious. Now let's get into the rankings. Hey everybody, my name is KillJoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. I'm a little sick, if you couldn't tell by now. I'm going to be using this vapor stick the entire video, just shoving this thing right up my nose. Subscribe to my OnlyFans for more action like that. Wow. Also, before we get into the list, be warned, there are spoilers for all 10 of these movies ahead. Cracking open our top 10 is Alien Romulus. Besides the first two sci-fi horror classics, I haven't found myself super invested in the rest of the Alien franchise. I think the AVP films are fantastically mindless action horror bliss, but those first two Alien movies are simply unmatched. Finally, Fede Alvarez has brought us an Alien film that matches that same energy. Romulus is a one-shot story in the Alien universe that loosely connects to the other films in a really creative way. I'm really thankful that they didn't just bring back Ripley so she could show up to help our new characters in the third act or something along those lines. Instead, Romulus builds up the new characters like every good movie should. The requel format is beyond exhausted at this point, and I'm really glad that we have some creatives behind franchise continuations like this that know that, like, dude, the requel phase is over, move on. David Johnson steals the show as Andy, going through a reminiscent yet original arc for a synthetic in this universe. Andy did nothing wrong, and I will support him through thick and thin. Kaylee Spaney finally finds herself in a good movie this year, alongside her explosive performance in Alex Garland's Civil War. I'm really glad more people are recognizing this actress who brings so much to every project she's attached to. I'm really glad that Romulus was also able to bring a bunch of elements from the franchise, including elements from both Prometheus and Covenant. This movie would have gotten a lot more points if it was Michael Fassbender who was the android in the flick, however, but I digress. This ambitious sequel swung for the fences and most times hits some home runs. That creature at the end was absolutely disgusting. I loved it. The zero-gravity acid blood sequence is pure nail-biting suspense, and the facehugger sauna scene, as I'm calling it, is terrifying. I could have used some more xenomorphs at the end of the day, but I'm glad that all of the other terrifying elements to the Alien franchise were front and center here. Overall, Alien Romulus is a must-watch from 2024 horror. I cannot wait to see what Fede Alvarez does next. A sequel to this, something original, a new AVP movie with his friend Dan Trachtenberg. Whatever it is, please just keep giving this man money to make horror movies. I am such a sucker for the VHS franchise, and this year we may have gotten one of the very best entries. Although most of the VHS movies have their hits and misses, Beyond is all hits from start to finish. The stork monster and its baby-stealing zombies in the first sketch feels like a twisted new take on a Resident Evil film. Dreamgirl has this refreshing Bollywood feel that no other VHS segment has really delved into before. Live and Let Dive made me realize how important VFX are to the modern state of horror films. Fur Babies is a total outlier from the other segments and feels like Justin Long's own take on his movie Tusk. Stowaway, possibly my favorite of the lot, is so terrifying for creating a unique fate worse than death for its central character, and the wraparound didn't suck this time. That last thing is rare for the VHS franchise, man. The fact that the VHS franchise made its Go to Space, Jump the Shark movie one of its best entries just goes to show that this franchise can go on forever. Bring on VHS 8 next year, baby. I am so ready for some more tapes. One of the biggest surprises from this year was a little French movie called Mads. It's a super simple concept that's executed to perfection. Basically, you follow this young man who's just scored some drugs and plans to party it up that night. On his way home, a sickly woman gets into his car as the night takes a devastating turn. I bet if she talked more, she would sound like me. This movie works so well for me because it's a downward spiral that just continuously gets worse and worse and then even worse. It is so darkly fun to see this situation turn into a simple accident to the apocalypse, all in the span of 86 minutes. Bonus points for this movie allegedly being one continuous take. I think there has to be some cuts in there, otherwise I don't know how they made this movie. I think I spotted at least one ghost cut, but the filmmakers say otherwise. Whether that's true or not, the product here is so overwhelming and fast-paced, you cannot look away. This movie is so efficient in the way that it sets itself up. You mostly follow Romain through the first act as he tries to run from his life-destroying problems, as the second and third acts are set up in these quick little conversations conversation stops. The film will throw you in and out of dire situations to these little dialogues that have so much weight later on. I think it's brilliant because the tension never wanes while it's also setting up more chaos to come with future characters you're going to follow in just a couple of minutes. Mads is an excellent feat from an incredibly underrated director, David Moreau, I believe his name is, and more people should really check this one out. Just read the subtitles, get over it. I had a religious experience seeing this movie just a few weeks ago. Wow. I don't know if I would say Robert Eggers is one of my favorite directors, but his style is undeniable. What he was able to add to the typical Nosferatu story is so attentive to detail and never refrains from the source material as it hits some modern feeling scares. That was really unexpected. I was going into a Robert Eggers Nosferatu film expecting slow, creepy dread, kind of like the Werner Herzog movie, but this was definitely an original take. This movie did end up scaring the hell out of me multiple times in different ways than what I was expecting, and it's a winner in my book. That scene on the ship puts the entire Demeter movie that came out last year to shame. This is also definitely the most sexualized version of the Nosferatu story, which is embodied almost entirely by Lily Rose Depp's show-stopping performance. I was a little worried when Anya Taylor-Joy dropped out of this film to play this role due to a scheduling conflict, but now I can't see anyone else playing this version of the character. Depp delivers one of the best female performances of the year, right up there with Demi Moore in The Substance. Nosferatu's design this time around was heavily inspired by paintings of Vlad the Impaler, hence the goofy mustache. I could not stop looking at it the first time we got a real good look at his face, and it does end up being a bit distracting in my opinion. The goofiness for me was enhanced because, like, in the very next scene, the dude stands up and his wiener is right in your face. I was not expecting Cockferatu, but that's what we got. I think I prefer the look from the Werner Herzog movie the most, but Bill's performance is freaking excellent. The slow baritone voice rolling his R's down in the basement of his vocal range is absolutely iconic. No complaints there, and I have to say the attention to detail with the design is pretty awesome, even if that mustache is really goofy looking. There's not a weak link in the entire cast either, from Willem Dafoe, Nicholas Hoult, Emma Corrin, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Ralph Ineson, and Simon McBurney all having standout moments here. Y'all better give Simon McBurney his flowers here too. That bird head biting scene is terrifying. As a huge slasher fan who is dying to see a modern Friday the 13th movie, In a Violent Nature kind of scratched that itch. It's a unique film being told from the drone-like killer's perspective, and some found it a bit slow, like Johnny's Gate. I don't know, man, I could watch this walk around the woods and kill park rangers all day long. The film flipped the script on the typical Friday the 13th tropes and told a surprisingly grounded story. Well, at least as close to grounded as you can get with the Friday the 13th concept. There's no on-screen sex, goofy score, or final stinger scare, but rather a more sophisticated element here that gives more weight to everything you're seeing on screen. This film, interestingly enough, highlights the killer's backstory, which is admittedly very similar to Jason Voorhees, but they do find a way to make it unique. I've always found Jason to be the most interesting character in the Friday the 13th movies, so putting the spotlight on him just makes way too much sense here. The kills also deliver in this one, with one that would challenge Art the Clown's most recent slaughter. That hook through the gut made me jump up at my desk watching the screener for this one. Oh my god! This is one of the many movies on this list that got a big reaction out of me. That was incredible. I think this is one of my favorite slashers of the decade, and I am dying to see the sequel. Bring us more Johnny and turn more tropes from that storied slasher franchise on their heads. Smile was a big hit back in 2022, and I really did like this flick, but at the end of the day, it does follow your typical Blumhouse movie format. I loved it for its excellent jump scares and character work, but I wouldn't call that first film groundbreaking. The sequel, however, is truly something special, expanding upon my favorite element to the first movie, false reality. Look, the jump scares and the creepy smiles are cool and all, but rendering every solace, every single way out for Sky Riley in this movie as a figment of her imagination is severely mean-spirited. The Perfect Blue influence is impeccable here. Naomi Scott gives one of my favorite performances of the year as Sky on this terrifying descent into madness, where nothing on screen is as it seems. I also can't get over the practical effects in this one. That creature at the end was awesome, and 10 times better than what we saw in the first Smile. The concert sequence at the end of this film shot this movie up into the top 5 of the year for me. That creature coming out of her is surreal terror at its finest, and also it opens up the possibility of literally anything to happen in the next movie. Smile 3 is rumored to be in production right now, and it could be about anybody. Anyone in that crowd could get the Smile Demon next, or all of them. It's one of those situations where I would be totally fine if Smile 2 was it, like it was just like a duology, just 2 movies and that was the full story, but I'm also so curious to see where it ends up going next. Parker Finn has the potential to be one of the greats if he continues this upward trend, man. I'm dying to see whatever he does next, if that's a Smile 3 or his new take on Possession. As a big fan of the Scream franchise, I love a good twist. Strange Darling has several, and all of them work. That's tough to do. Strange Darling is an incredibly rare horror film that doesn't come around often for its ambitious structure and deceptive character work. Telling your story out of order can feel like you're just mimicking Tarantino if you have no real point to it, but thankfully JT Molnar does this with vicious intent. It's a will they won't they story on murder rather than romance. Just like Nosferatu, Strange Darling joins the ranks of other 2024 horror movies that are crazy horny. Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner give best of the year performances here. I have to say, nearly every moment of horror this year that featured Kyle Gallner was extremely impressive. That opening scene of Smile 2 is damn near perfection, continuously building tension and ending with Joel crashing out. Literally. He once again plays a cop in this film, and I think I like his performance here even more than in Smile, man. Some great stuff all around. This film is a very subtle commentary on gender politics too, which never feels too preachy. It's just a wildly intense thriller that does make you think a bit. Some people might hear that and be turned away, but this film wouldn't work at all without that commentary. Geez, without that element, the final twist wouldn't be as powerful at all, in my opinion. This is a brilliantly crafted thriller, and I hope the new Scream movie takes some notes. Mr. Crockett is easily the dark horse of this list, but goddamn it deserves this 3rd place so badly. Most people likely haven't seen this one, yet I found it to be one of the most compelling horror flicks of the entire year. Mr. Crockett is about the titular children's show host kidnapping kids through demonic and supernatural forces. It feels very inspired by Nightmare on Elm Street, which is why writer-director Brandon Espy here is now my first choice to continue that franchise. Mr. Crockett is essentially a prototype of what a new Nightmare movie could look like. If In a Violent Nature answered the question of what would a Friday the 13th movie look like in the 2020s, this is your answer to a modern Freddy Krueger. Mr. Crockett is instantly iconic from its opening scene onward. The Mr. Crockett show plays on the TV to an abusive household where Mr. Crockett feels the need to intervene. You see his hand poke out from the VCR player and it gives off some The Ring vibes. Then the most wild kill happens out the gate with some disgusting looking practical effects. I was instantly hooked from the first 10 minutes of this one, and God, I wish I had been able to see this one in a theater and not on Hulu. Elvis Nolasco as Mr. Crockett gives one of my favorite performances from a horror villain this year. This is such a specific type of sinister that feels a little goofy and even sympathetic at times. It's rare that a movie can make me feel for its villain. Like, I get where the dude is coming from, even though he's going about it the wrong way. Between a very well thought out villain, a lot of heart, and a bonkers 3rd act, this movie is easily one of the best from the year. They play this over the top concept straight, making it so effectively fun, horrifying, and even emotional. I love this film, and I'm going to be lobbying hard to get Brandon Espy the gig for A Nightmare on Elm Street, man. I don't think there is anybody more qualified. Hot take. Art the Clown returns for the holiday season, even though this movie dropped in October, causing chaos for Christmas. Terrifier 3 solidifies this series as my favorite slasher franchise of all time. Art the Clown is magnetic, and David Howard Thornton gives one of his best performances to date here. Lauren Lavera is more badass as always, playing Sienna Shaw, and Samantha Scafidi is surprisingly my favorite part of the entire movie. I think I was a little worried that Damien was trying to shoehorn in Victoria to keep this film consistent with the first, but this movie offered more than enough reason to reinvent this character. Victoria is even scarier than Art here, which is saying something. Art gets up to his usual antics, but this time with a clearly higher budget. I think the most effective scenes in this movie, the more I continue to watch it, is that leg snap in the shower where Cole's leg just comes off as he's trying to escape, and also the scene in the attic where Art the Clown just yanks all the skin off of that demolition worker's head. I don't know why, that just messes me up so bad. My favorite murder of this movie is still the rats in the tube, because I love rats. It's one of my favorite Art the Clown kills in his entire massacre history, even though there are many contenders from this one that could make that same spot. The only real negative thing I have to say about this movie is that Art is becoming a bit too mainstream, and that's starting to show in the films themselves. Art is now making meta references to his increase in popularity, and it's just making him seem more like Deadpool than the murderous clown we all knew and loved in the more indie releases from the past. While this is totally deserved because Damien and his crew have put multiple years of work into making this guy a slasher icon, I just hope for part 4 we don't entirely lose that indie horror feel. It's why Terrifier 2 is still my favorite from from this franchise despite many innovations happening in this third entry. Despite that minor criticism, Terrifier 3 absolutely rocked. I loved it, easily one of my favorite horror films of 2024. I cannot wait for the fourth movie. Please bring Jonathan back, fingers crossed. It's hard to argue that The Substance isn't the best horror movie of the year. This body horror masterpiece seemed to come out of nowhere this past fall and has captivated horror fans all over the globe. Our three lead actors, Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid, give career best performances in the year's most disgusting and vocal horror film. While Terrifier 3 is an absolute blast from start to finish, I just can't think of one thing I dislike about The Substance. The sound design, the psycho-inspired shot choices, the look of the practical effects, even the most minute details are crafted to perfection. Like the Five Gums sounding voice over the phone.
Younger, more beautiful, more perfect.
Coralie Farja, a last name I think I'm pronouncing correctly, has solidified herself as one of the many masters of body horror, right up there with the ranks of David Cronenberg and Julia Ducournau. I don't care if that sounds like hyperbole, that's how good this damn movie is. This is one of the best horror films of the decade for its powerful commentary on how women's self-perception can be horribly warped by the media. I usually think it's more mature to do that type of commentary in a more subtle approach, but The Substance does this explosively and with precision. There's an anger from the creative here that is so vivid throughout the entire flick, and rightfully so. The Substance transcends the film conversation. It is a complex work of art. The Substance is an instant horror classic that I'm sure we'll be talking about for many years to come. This is a director that has my full attention moving forward. Whatever she does next, I will be there day one. Well, my voice is totally shot. I can't believe I made it through the video. I am still so sick from the holidays. Thank you to my extended family for getting me sick. So much love to you guys. Please like this video and subscribe. We're almost at 30,000 subscribers. Help old Jake get there. Thank you all for watching. Happy New Year. And as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.